When Robert Downey Jr. was brought back for Avengers Doomsday, I was excited, but for some reason it felt as if it was something I was expecting. And like most other MCU fans, to me, it made sense bringing him back, to help relaunch and rebuild the MCU from the ground up.
New mask. Same task.
But now it's become something else entirely, and that's clear from his appearance in the Doomsday trailer.
Something's coming.
I'm gonna come.
If I separate my excitement of all the characters coming back and really look at it, the MCU is jumping the shark. I mean, if you really think about it for a second, it's lost a lot of the hype over the years. So much to the point where new shows, movies, and characters just aren't working. And there is no debating that the MCU in its current state is far past its prime. And I would argue it's beginning, if not already, entered a state of panic, with years of shows that go nowhere and movies that don't have a proper setup to the bigger picture, which in turn is now making me feel that it's clearly jumping the shark. And if you're unfamiliar with the term, it was first done in a show called Happy Days, where one of its core characters legitimately jumps over a shark. So in other words, it means when a long-running franchise exhausts a core appeal and resorts to gimmicks, exaggeration, or fan service. And in reality, that's exactly what the MCU has been doing, because they introduced brand new characters post-Endgame, but even brought back dead characters for their own film. And even though some of these movies did good, they rode off the coattails of other films, and also continued what would ultimately become a pattern, which is bringing back old characters from other franchises and inserting them into other films. And the amount of money these films has generated in phases 4 through 6 was significantly lower than phases 1 through 3. Now, I'm not saying they're still not massively profitable, but I am saying not only have they suffered financially, but they also are struggling canonically. In the Infinity Saga, you had a beginning, middle, and end. You spent years to build core characters and establish who they were in their own films, and eventually brought them all together, explored tension between them, and also had them learn how to work better and more efficiently together, which in the end left you off with a fully compelling story with a satisfying conclusion. And that's exactly what phases 4 through 6 have failed to do. Which brings me to my next point, which is how many of you truly feel that the MCU has had a clear structure that has resulted in knowing who the core leaders are and who your main heroes will be, while also setting up a long-term story and fledging out those new characters. And yes, it's been attempted and explored with Thunderbolts, the Eternals, Shang-Chi, Captain America Brave New World, Fantastic Four, and some others. But what it's failed to do is truly introduce those characters and recapture the interest of fans, which in turn makes them show up for every movie. And why could this be? Well, I think it's because after Endgame, you introduced a Black Widow film that, yes, should have happened years before during the Infinity Saga, that didn't. But more importantly, the sole purpose of the film was to establish Yelena, which was to make up for Black Widow dying in Endgame, putting you in a position where you can't use that character anymore. So what do? You introduce a new, younger version of the same character, basically. Then you try and replicate an Iron Man event with Shang-Chi and the Eternals, which tries replicating exactly what you did before, which was taking a lesser-known character and establishing them into a big A-list hero. But the problem was, these films were just genuinely not that great, and those characters aren't as interesting. So that formula that once worked before didn't work again. And during the second half of that phase, you ended up getting some films with the more popular characters. Which brings us to the bigger picture they started in phase 5, which was doing this continued pattern more consistently. You have Ant-Man trying to clean up the failed story arc with Kang, then pivot back to known characters with Guardians of the Galaxy, but end that movie with a new, less popular team. Then have the absolute bomb and misfire of the Marvels, which is using a character that became popular riding off the coattails of a film smashed between its two biggest movies ever, with a character that's just genuinely not liked. Then going to Deadpool and Wolverine, which brings back Hugh Jackman and introduces Deadpool into the MCU, combined in the Fox universe and also using fan castings for the extra bump of excitement, which is a trick they already used in Doctor Strange, just for it to end with those characters dying or being left in their timeline, and all circling back to Captain America Brave New World, riding on a story from a Hulk movie almost 20 years ago, while also trying to reinvent the character of Falcon into the new Captain America to put the cherry on top.
Oh, it's not a sundae. It's a banana split.
Next, continuing to expand on the characters from the Black Widow story while also incorporating familiar ones and new ones to plug them into their own Thunderbolts movie, which was struggling at the box office, so they tried to rebrand it to the new Avengers and piggyback off the Avengers name and bring more people into the theater. Now I hope you can start to recognize the pattern here, which is taking the lesser known characters, trying to introduce them while not having a bigger story that builds to something in their team-up films for the future, but then also doesn't catch the interest in the new film to make you want to see more of that character, while also inserting reliable films in the middle or beginning of the new phase to try and ride the momentum that first phase had by bringing back favorite characters, old characters, and cameos, which then pivots you into Fantastic Four, which is supposed to set up an entire Avengers movie with an end credit scene that has no context, and this is exactly where Doomsday comes into play. You've had no story build up, you don't have a clear idea of who the leaders are, you lost your interesting characters and replaced them with less popular ones, who have no idea what enemy they're fighting, and aren't even aware of a bigger threat, but more importantly, the audience not having any idea of what the bigger threat is, or why they should care, while also introducing the Fantastic Four, one of the most popular superhero teams ever, but not grabbing the attention of the fans and doing as well as they truly wanted, just to set up this entire arc in one end clip that has zero context and is unclear what set intentions are. So now what you're having to do in Avengers Doomsday is take all these characters who aren't particularly liked, shove them into a movie to battle for something that they don't understand, for a purpose that they haven't explained to the audience, so they have a reason to care, while also now jumping the shark and bringing back Chris Evans as Captain Arm&Hammer, Robert Downey Jr., all of the Fox X-Men, supposedly Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Deadpool, and Wolverine, all for them to show up and essentially act as a martyr, to bring you back in the theater for nostalgia, get you interested because you're seeing all these characters that you cherish finally in their comic accurate outfits, using all of their powers to then die to a character that used to be a main hero, to set up another big event to eventually bring back all those characters again, supposedly have their memories wiped, figure out what's going on, and come together to defeat Doom, so they can do a soft reset, jump the shit out of the shark, and essentially undo everything that was ended so perfectly in Endgame, while also having to spend time during Doomsday explaining how all of these events happened in the first place, which in turn wastes screen time. And after Secret Wars, I'm hearing talks that Robert Downey Jr. is only doing these 2 movies as Doom. Then they're going to do an X-Men movie, I'd assume with Sadie Sink's Jean Grey, and based on the rumors I've seen, the plan is to bring back Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man and make one more Iron Man movie, if not multiple. So if they're all killed at the end of Doomsday, and they come back in Secret Wars with their memories wiped, now Kevin Feige could create that simplified, easy to understand timeline with all the heroes being in the same universe. This isn't just bringing back loved characters and finishing an overall story, it's about uprooting a perfectly ended story with Iron Man and Captain America, because trying to re-establish them with new characters and fill those leadership positions wasn't working. So therefore, you have to jump the shark, bring back these old characters to get people interested, and ruin what was done, and then erase the minds of all your heroes, to then completely negate everything that happened to every saga before, so they can essentially do it all again. And Kevin Feige even kind of reinforces this to some extent, and even has plans to run through 2042. So the final verdict is, you haven't been telling good stories. You have uninteresting characters, and now you're going to the level of bringing back 2 cherished and loved characters to make up for these new characters not performing the way you want, while also bringing back every nostalgic character just to kill them off as a martyr for the big story that had no build-up or development, just to make them all forget and go their separate ways in the end, and then do a soft reboot, which in turn is jumping the shark. But what do you think about the current state of the MCU? Let me know down in the comments below. And like the rest of you, I'll be in the theater December 18th watching Doomsday to see what's going to happen. But as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.